First contact with the forgotten. The UNSS Horizon drifted silently through the Carina Nebula's outer rim, its quantum sensors probing the darkness for signs of life. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the distant stars. After 15 years of deep space exploration, humanity had encountered plenty of alien civilizations, but none had prepared them for what they would find in the Carina 7 system. Dr. Chen to the bridge immediately. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the ship's comm system. Sarah hurried to the bridge, where a holographic display showed a planet bathed in an unusual crystalline aurora. "We're picking up artificial structures," Lieutenant Wei reported, "but the energy signatures are unlike anything we've seen before. They're singing." The planet's surface glittered with massive crystalline formations that seemed to pulse with inner light. But beneath the beautiful display, their sensors detected signs of catastrophic environmental collapse. The star was dying, its radiation slowly becoming toxic to the planet's unique ecosystem. As they entered orbit, they detected the remnants of multiple alien vessels that had visited before them. Each ship's log told the same story. They had found the Arvani, a crystalline species whose biology required precisely maintained environmental conditions, deemed them too costly to save, and left them to their fate. The Arvani cities were architectural marvels of living crystal, but they were failing. Their population of roughly 50,000 had retreated to underground caverns where they could still maintain the delicate balance their bodies required. Even there, time was running out. Previous species estimated it would take the resources of an entire solar system to relocate them, Captain Rodriguez said, reviewing the abandoned logs. The environmental systems alone would bankrupt most civilizations. Sarah studied the readings from the surface. The Arvani weren't just crystalline in appearance. Their entire biology was based on structured mineral lattices that responded to energy fields in ways that defied conventional understanding. "Captain," she said slowly, "what others saw as a burden, I think we're looking at an opportunity. These beings don't just exist in crystal forms. They actively manipulate quantum states through their biological processes." She pulled up her preliminary findings. Their weakness, their need for precise environmental control, is actually part of what makes them extraordinary. They're living quantum computers. Each Arvani is capable of computational feats that would require facilities the size of cities for us to match. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had been struggling to advance their quantum computing technology for decades. The Arvani weren't a burden to be abandoned. They were potentially the key to humanity's next great leap forward. Captain Rodriguez straightened in her chair. "Prepare a first contact team. Let's show the galaxy what humanity sees when we look at those in need of help." The descent to the surface was complicated by the crystalline storms that raged in the upper atmosphere. Another reason previous civilizations had deemed the Arvani too difficult to save. But human ingenuity had long since learned to adapt to challenging environments. When they finally made contact with the Arvani leadership, Sarah found herself facing beings that seemed to be carved from living diamond. Their forms geometric yet organic, pulsing with inner light that shifted with their emotions. Their leader, who called herself Symphony, communicated through patterns of light and energy that their translators struggled to process. "You are the 18th species to find us," Symphony said, her words carrying undertones of resigned sorrow. "We know what comes next. You will calculate the cost of saving us, deem us too great a burden, and leave us to our fate. It is the way of the galaxy." Sarah stepped forward, her heart aching at the defeat in Symphony's voice. "With respect," she said, "humanity has a different way of calculating value. Where others saw burden, we see potential. Where they saw weakness, we see unique strength. We're not here to abandon you. We're here to offer partnership." Symphony's crystalline form flickered with surprise, hope bleeding through her resigned exterior. "Partnership. All others said we would drain their resources. Resources can be replaced," Sarah replied. "Knowledge, culture, unique perspectives. These are priceless. We believe every civilization has something to teach us, if we're willing to learn. As she explained humanity's preliminary ideas for saving their people, ranging from adapted habitat ships to terraform candidate planets, she saw something change in the Arvani. Where before there had been only dimming light, now there were sparks of color, of life. There will be challenges, Sarah admitted. We'll need to develop new technologies, find creative solutions, but humanity has never let difficulty stand in the way of doing what's right. Symphony's response came in a cascade of shifting lights that their translators rendered as laughter, the first joy they had expressed in centuries. Perhaps, she said, that is why you are the first to truly see us. As the human team began their preliminary surveys, they discovered that the Arvani's crystalline nature, far from being merely a burden, had allowed them to develop technologies that worked on principles humanity had barely begun to theorize about. Their cities weren't just built of crystal. They were single vast computing networks that could process data in ways that made Earth's most advanced quantum computers look primitive. The galaxy had written them off as too expensive to save. But as Sarah watched her fellow humans already sketching plans and trading ideas with their new crystalline allies, she knew they had found something far more valuable than the cost of saving them. They had found partners who could help humanity reach heights they had only dreamed of. The mission to save the Arvani wouldn't just change their fate, it would reshape humanity's future in ways none of those other civilizations had bothered to imagine. The price of compassion. The news of humanity's decision to help the Arvani spread through the galactic community like a shockwave. Within days, the UNSS Horizon's communications array was flooded with messages from other civilizations, most of them warnings about the foolishness of their undertaking. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the newly established crystal laboratory aboard the Horizon, watching as an Arvani researcher named Harmony demonstrated their quantum manipulation capabilities. The crystalline beings form, pulsed with complex patterns, as they interface directly with a prototype quantum core. The calculations your most advanced computers take hours to process, Harmony explained, their form shimmering with subtle colors, we can perform in moments. It is how we survived so long, optimizing every resource to its maximum potential. Sarah watched in amazement as Harmony solved a complex terraforming equation set that would have taken Earth's supercomputers weeks to process. But before they could celebrate this breakthrough, Captain Rodriguez called an emergency meeting. The Galactic Council has issued an official censure, Rodriguez announced to her senior staff. They're threatening to restrict our access to critical trade routes if we continue with this economically irresponsible venture. Her expression hardened. They've also started calling us primitive for letting emotions override logical resource management. Chief Engineer Marcus Jong snorted. Logical? They're the ones ignoring the potential here. Show them what Harmony just accomplished in our lab. It's not just about technology, Sarah interjected. The Arvani have been teaching us about their crystal architecture. Their entire civilization is built on principles of harmony and resonance. They don't just survive. They transform their environment through quantum manipulation at a scale we barely understood was possible. The ship's quantum communications array suddenly lit up with an incoming priority message. A holographic display showed Admiral Hayes, her expression grave. Captain Rodriguez, the situation has escalated. 3 Galactic Council species have announced they're suspending trade agreements with Earth. They're claiming we're destabilizing the galactic economy by investing resources in a dying species. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. With respect, Admiral, they're wrong on both counts. The Arvani aren't dying, and our investment is already showing returns beyond anything we anticipated. Sarah stepped forward. Admiral, we've confirmed that the Arvani's crystalline biology allows them to perform quantum computations naturally. One Arvani researcher just solved a terraforming problem in minutes that would have taken our best computers weeks, and they've offered to teach us their techniques. The Admiral's expression shifted from concern to interest. Send me everything you have. I'll take it to the Council. In the meantime, continue with the evacuation plans. Earth stands by its commitments. As the transmission ended, Symphony entered the bridge, her crystalline form dimmed with concern. "We hear the discord our presence has caused. Perhaps the others were right. The cost of helping us is too great." Rodriguez turned to the Arvani leader. "The only cost too great would be abandoning our principles. Humanity learned long ago that measuring everything in terms of immediate resource expenditure is short-sighted. The greatest advances often come from helping others." Over the next few weeks, as political pressure mounted, the human-Arvani collaboration bore extraordinary fruit. The Arvani's quantum manipulation abilities, combined with human creativity and engineering, led to breakthroughs in environmental control technology. They developed new methods of energy generation that were far more efficient than anything either species had created alone. But the greatest discovery came unexpectedly. Sarah and Harmony were working late in the lab when they noticed something remarkable about the way the Arvani interfaced with quantum fields. "Your crystalline structure," Sarah said excitedly, "it doesn't just process quantum information. It actually manipulates quantum spacetime at a fundamental level. Do you realize what this means?" Harmony's form brightened with understanding. "The very thing that made us vulnerable, our need to maintain precise quantum states, could be the key to revolutionary space travel technology." The implications were staggering. The Arvani's ability to manipulate quantum fields, combined with human engineering, could potentially lead to faster-than-light travel capabilities far beyond current technology. What other species had dismissed as a burden was actually the gateway to the next great leap in space exploration. As Sarah prepared her report on these findings, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. The species that everyone had deemed too expensive to save was about to change the face of galactic civilization. Sometimes, she reflected, the greatest discoveries come not from cold calculation, but from the simple human desire to help others in need. Breaking the barrier. The UNSS Horizon's main laboratory had been transformed. Where once there were standard research stations, now crystalline structures grew from the walls and ceiling, pulsing with quantum energy. Dr. Sarah Chen and Harmony stood before a holographic display showing their latest test results, while Captain Rodriguez and a team of Earth's top scientists watched via quantum link. "The principles are revolutionary," Sarah explained, gesturing to the complex equations floating in the air. "The Arvani's crystalline structure naturally creates quantum tunnels at the subatomic level. They don't just process quantum information, they actually fold spacetime around themselves." Harmony's form shimmered with excitement as they demonstrated, their crystalline body momentarily seeming to exist in two places at once. What was once our greatest vulnerability, our need to maintain precise quantum states, has become our greatest gift to share. The implications were staggering. By combining Arvani quantum manipulation with human engineering, they had discovered a new approach to faster-than-light travel. But before they could celebrate this breakthrough, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple vessels dropping out of FTL, Lieutenant Wei reported, his hands flying over the control panel. "Galactic Council ships, heavily armed. They're demanding we cease all research activities immediately." The lead Council ship's commander, a Trellixar named Void Speaker, appeared on the main screen. His crystalline exoskeleton, a poor imitation of the Arvani's natural form, gleamed coldly. "Humans," he announced, "you have been deemed in violation of Council resource management protocols. Your interference with the natural extinction of an unfeasible species cannot be permitted to continue." Rodriguez stood tall, her voice steady. "The Arvani are not unfeasible. They're our partners in what may be the greatest technological breakthrough since the discovery of faster-than-light travel itself." "Irrelevant," Void Speaker dismissed. "The Council has calculated the resource cost of maintaining their species. No potential breakthrough is worth such expenditure." Symphony glided onto the bridge, her crystalline form radiating a calm authority that made even the Trellixar pause. "You speak of calculations," she said, "but you fail to account for variables beyond your understanding. Shall we demonstrate?" At her signal, Harmony and Sarah activated their prototype. The laboratory's crystalline structures began to resonate in perfect harmony with the Arvani's quantum field. Energy readings spiked across every sensor. "Impossible," Void Speaker whispered as his instruments registered what was happening. The space around the horizon was folding, quantum fields bending in ways that defied conventional physics. "This is just the beginning," Sarah announced. "The Arvani's costly biology is the key to revolutionary quantum drive technology. Their entire species evolved to manipulate spacetime at the quantum level. While you were calculating the cost of saving them, you missed the invaluable gift they offer to all spacefaring races." The demonstration continued as more council ships arrived. They watched in stunned silence as the human Arvani technology achieved what their best scientists had deemed impossible: stable, controlled quantum tunneling at a macroscopic scale. "The Council's fundamental error," Rodriguez said into the silence that followed, "was assuming that worth can only be measured in immediate resource expenditure. Humanity learned long ago that compassion and innovation go hand in hand. By helping others, we often help ourselves in ways we never expected." The news spread rapidly through the galaxy. The species that had been abandoned by every advanced civilization was now poised to revolutionize space travel. But more importantly, the partnership between humans and Arvani was proving something that would shake the foundations of galactic society. That true advancement comes not from cold calculation, but from the willingness to help others in need. As Sarah worked with Harmony to refine their breakthrough, she reflected on how close the galaxy had come to losing something precious. The Arvani's supposed weakness, their complex biological needs, had turned out to be the key to their greatest strength. It was a lesson humanity had learned through its own history, that those who seem most vulnerable often have the most to teach us, if we're only willing to learn. The Galactic Council ships remained in orbit, their commanders engaged in heated debates with their superiors. The equation had changed. Now they had to calculate not just the cost of saving the Arvani, but the cost of losing access to their revolutionary technology. "They still don't understand," Symphony observed, watching the council ships. "They see only the technology, not the true lesson." "And what's that?" Sarah asked. "That the greatest advances come not from calculating value, but from valuing that which cannot be calculated. Unity in adversity." The Galactic Council's emergency session was broadcast across every civilized world. The Grand Chamber on Capitol Station hummed with tension as representatives from 1,000 species debated the human Arvani situation. Earth's ambassador, Diana Martinez, stood calmly at the center of the storm. "The evidence is irrefutable," she stated, while holographic displays showed the quantum tunneling breakthrough. "The Arvani's unique biology, which you all dismissed as too costly to maintain, has opened doors we never knew existed. But more importantly, this partnership has taught us something about the true meaning of civilization." The Trelixar Void Speaker rose from his seat, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light. "You speak of meanings while ignoring numbers. Even with this breakthrough, the resource cost of maintaining the Arvani species is already being offset by the advances we've made," interrupted Dr. Sarah Chen, speaking from the UNSS Horizon via quantum link. Behind her, Harmony manipulated quantum fields in ways that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "But you're still missing the larger point. The Arvani aren't just teaching us about quantum physics, they're teaching us about consciousness itself." The chamber erupted in murmurs as Sarah and Harmony demonstrated their latest discovery. The Arvani's crystalline neural networks didn't just process information. They existed in a quantum state that allowed them to perceive reality in ways other species could barely comprehend. While you saw them as fragile beings requiring expensive environmental controls, Sarah continued, you failed to understand why they needed those controls. Their quantum-sensitive biology allows them to perceive and manipulate the fundamental fabric of spacetime. They don't just think differently from us. They experience reality on a quantum level. Symphony's form shimmered into view beside Sarah, her presence commanding attention even through the quantum link. For centuries, We tried to explain to our visitors that our needs were not merely physical. Our environmental requirements maintain the quantum coherence that is essential to our consciousness, but none stayed long enough to understand. The council chamber had grown very quiet. The implications were sinking in. They hadn't just abandoned a struggling species. They had nearly lost a civilization that could revolutionize their understanding of consciousness itself. But not everyone was convinced. The Mareth representative, a being of pure energy, flared bright with skepticism. This is all very interesting, but it doesn't change the fundamental resource equation. The cost of maintaining their environmental needs has already been reduced by 60% through human engineering innovations. Captain Rodriguez interrupted, joining the transmission. Innovations that came about because we chose to help rather than abandon. Every problem we've solved for the Arvani has led to technological advances that benefit all species. She gestured to a series of holographic displays showing the new technologies developed through human-Arvani collaboration, quantum-enhanced environmental systems that operated at unprecedented efficiency levels, new methods of energy generation that tapped into quantum fields, and communication systems that operated instantaneously across vast distances. But the greatest breakthrough, Diana continued from the council floor, isn't technological at all. It's the reminder that true civilization isn't measured by how we treat those who can help us, but by how we treat those who need our help. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species were beginning to see the wisdom in humanity's approach, while others clung to their rigid resource calculations. But there was no denying that the balance of power was shifting. In orbit around the Arvani homeworld, Sarah watched the proceedings with harmony and symphony. The Horizons Quantum Lab had become a symbol of what was possible when species chose cooperation over calculation. They're starting to understand, Harmony observed, their crystalline form pulsing with complex patterns. But some still resist. Change takes time, Sarah replied. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way. But each breakthrough we make together proves that compassion isn't just morally right. It's practically advantageous. Symphony's form shifted, creating a dazzling display of quantum interactions. Perhaps that is why your species was meant to find us. You understand that true value cannot always be measured in resources consumed or energy expended. As if to emphasize her point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Wei's voice came over the comm. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. It's representatives from the rimward civilizations. They're requesting permission to observe our quantum tunneling experiments. They're saying they want to learn. Sarah smiled at her Arvani friends. The galaxy was changing, one mind at a time. The species that had been dismissed as too costly to save was now teaching the galaxy a lesson about the true value of compassion. A new dawn. 5 years after humanity's first contact with the Arvani, the landscape of galactic civilization had changed dramatically. The massive quantum transportation hub orbiting Earth stood as a testament to how far things had come. Its crystalline spires housing both human and Arvani engineers working in perfect harmony. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the hub's central control room, watching ships from dozens of species arrive through the quantum tunneling network that now connected much of explored space. Beside her, Harmony's crystalline form pulsed with quiet satisfaction. The council is arriving for the anniversary ceremony, Harmony noted, their quantum senses detecting the approaching diplomatic vessels, including representatives who once voted to abandon our people. Sarah smiled. They're here to learn, not judge. That's progress. The chamber they stood in was itself a symbol of how much had changed. Its walls were a seamless blend of human engineering and Arvani crystal architecture, maintaining the precise quantum fields that both species now understood were essential not just for Arvani survival, but for revolutionary technological advancement. The quantum tunneling technology they developed together had transformed space travel, but that was just the beginning. The Arvani's unique perception of quantum reality had opened new frontiers in everything from computing to medicine. Their ability to manipulate quantum fields had led to breakthroughs in environmental control that made it possible to terraform worlds once thought uninhabitable. Captain Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez, entered the control room. Her uniform bore the new insignia of the Human Arvani Space Initiative. "The council members are requesting permission to tour the quantum engineering section," she reported, "particularly the education facilities." That was perhaps the most significant change of all. The galaxy had realized that the Arvani's supposedly costly environmental needs were actually crucial to developing young crystalline minds capable of quantum manipulation. Now, species from across the galaxy sent their best and brightest to learn from them. Symphony glided into the room, her crystalline form more radiant than ever. 5 years of proper environmental support had allowed her people to flourish in ways even they hadn't thought possible. "The Council has formally acknowledged their error," she announced. "They're proposing to rewrite the resource assessment protocols that once deemed us unworthy of saving." "About time," Sarah said, remembering those tense early days. "Though I suppose we should thank them. Their abandonment led to this partnership." The main viewing screen activated, showing the spectacular sight of the Arvani homeworld. Once dying, it now thrived under the protection of quantum-engineered environmental fields. The crystal cities had been restored to their former glory, their spires reaching toward the stars. But more importantly, they were no longer isolated. Human settlements had sprung up in specially designed habitats, and ships from across the galaxy docked at the orbital stations. The latest calculations from the Council's Efficiency Bureau arrived this morning, Admiral Rodriguez said with a hint of amusement. "Apparently, the return on investment for saving our friends has exceeded their projections by several thousand%. They're still missing the point," Harmony observed. "The true value of compassion cannot be calculated." Sarah touched the crystalline wall, feeling the quantum resonance that now seemed as natural as breathing. Maybe that's the real lesson in all this. The galaxy thought it was teaching humanity to be practical, to make cold calculations about who deserves saving. Instead, humanity taught the galaxy that sometimes the most practical choice is compassion. Symphony's form created a dazzling display of quantum patterns, their equivalent of laughter. "And in doing so, you proved that the most valuable resources are not those we can measure, but those we can only discover by giving freely of ourselves." The ceremony that followed was broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of species watched as human and Arvani leaders unveiled plans for the next generation of quantum exploration vessels. These ships would carry teams of both species to the furthest reaches of space, seeking out other civilizations that might have been overlooked or abandoned. "We were lucky," Symphony addressed the gathered dignitaries. "When our star began to die, when our bodies proved too costly for others to save, we found friends who saw beyond immediate costs to distant possibilities, who measured value not in resources required, but in potential waiting to be realized." Sarah stood beside her crystalline friend, remembering their first meeting in those dying underground cities. But the real discovery wasn't the quantum tunneling, or the advanced computing, or even the environmental engineering, she added. It was the reminder that true civilization is built not on calculations of worth, but on the willingness to help others reach their full potential. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah watched ships from across the galaxy quantum tunnel through space that once took months to cross. Each vessel carried the fruits of human Arvani cooperation, new technologies, new medicines, new ways of understanding the quantum nature of reality itself. But more importantly, they carried a new understanding of what made a civilization truly advanced. The species that had been dismissed as too costly to save had helped transform galactic civilization. But the greater transformation was in how the galaxy now viewed the value of life itself. In the end, humanity's impractical compassion had proved the most practical choice of all. In the quantum lab that evening, Sarah found Harmony teaching a group of young engineers from various species. The crystalline being was demonstrating how to perceive quantum fields directly, a skill that had once been thought impossible for non-Arvani to learn. "The galaxy is changing," Harmony observed as the students left. Species that once avoided contact now seek to learn from each other. Those who once saw only costs now look for hidden potential. Sarah nodded, watching the quantum fields shimmer around them. That's the real breakthrough, isn't it? Not the technology or the science, but the understanding that every species, every individual, has something unique to offer, if we're only willing to look beyond surface calculations to see the value within. Outside, the stars shone brighter than ever through the quantum fields that now connected the galaxy. Somewhere out there, other civilizations waited to be discovered, other potentials waited to be realized. And thanks to the partnership between humans and Arvani, they would be met not with cold calculations, but with warm hearts and open minds. The galaxy had learned that the true measure of advancement wasn't in the efficiency of resource allocation, but in the wisdom to see value where others saw only cost. It was a lesson that would guide civilizations for generations to come. End.